All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into some really cool new research that's asking a pretty deep question about AI and one of its most impressive skills, writing code. We've all seen it. These large language models, LLMs, they can crank out code, solve really complex problems, and sometimes they're even beating human programmers in competitions. But is that the whole story? Are they just, amazing parrots? Or is there some real understanding going on under the hood? Let's get into it. I mean, the progress has been absolutely wild to watch. You've got models from places like OpenAI, DeepSeek, and Google just crushing it on these coding benchmarks, posting scores that are literally superhuman. On the surface, it really looks like they've got this whole coding thing figured out. But here's the catch. As the researchers behind the paper we're looking at today point out, there's this growing worry that our tests are, well, kind of shallow. We see that the AI got the right answer, but we have no idea how it got there. We're just grading the final exam, not looking at the homework. So to fix this, these researchers came up with a totally new way to peek inside the AI's thought process. It's called the coding triangle, and it's a framework designed to look at an AI's coding skills from 3 different perspectives. A lot like how a human developer actually works. So the first corner of the triangle is what they call the editorial. Just think about how a person would start a coding project. Before you write a single line, you think about the problem, you break it down, you come up with a plan, right? Well, the editorial is the AI's version of that. It's the plain English explanation of its game plan. Next up, we've got the code vertex. This is the part we all see. It's the final product, the actual code that the AI spits out. It's the thing that either runs or it doesn't. Simple as that. And the third and final corner is cases. A good developer doesn't just ship code and hope for the best. No, they test it. They think of all the weird edge cases and things that could go wrong. This vertex measures if the AI can do that too. Can it check its own work and find its own bugs? So here's why this is so brilliant. The coding triangle connects all 3 of these points. It's not just asking, did the AI pass the test? It's asking, was its plan any good? Did the code actually follow that plan? And was it smart enough to check its own work? This gives us a way, way richer picture of what's actually happening. Okay, so armed with this new tool, the researchers started digging. And what they found were some really surprising, fundamental differences between how AIs and humans solve problems. It's like a tale of 2 completely different kinds of minds. They found what's called a distribution shift. Now, that's just a fancy term, but what it means is simple. The patterns of thought and, more importantly, the types of mistakes AIs make are totally different from ours. It's not that they're just faster or slower, they are playing a different game entirely. And wow, this image just says it all. Look at the left side. That's a map of AI errors. See those big, solid blocks of color? That means the AIs are all making the exact same mistakes. They fail in very predictable ways. Now look at the right. That's us, humans. It's a chaotic mess of color. We find all sorts of new and creative ways to be wrong. This chart here, it basically puts numbers to what we just saw with our own eyes. Human programmers, a ton of diversity in their solutions. You can mix a bunch of different AIs together and you get a little more variety. But a single AI model, it's stuck in a major rut, churning out answers and mistakes that all look the same. And the researchers nail it with this quote. The model gets stuck in its inherent reasoning patterns. You can tell it to try again a dozen times, but it's probably just going to walk down the same wrong path because that's the path it knows. So why should you care about this? It means an AI can get trapped in what you could call a cognitive echo chamber. If the right answer requires some kind of creative jump, something outside its training data, it might be literally impossible for it to get there, no matter how intelligent it seems. This leads us to the next part of the study. And honestly, this is the most mind-bending finding of all. They call it the consistency paradox. I mean, it seems obvious, right? If an AI can perfectly analyze a problem, if it writes a flawless editorial plan, then it should write perfect code. That just makes sense. But is that what actually happens? Okay, now look closely at this chart because the gap here is incredible. On the left, with no plan, the AI passes about 50% of the time.
Now give it its own plan, and the needle barely moves, maybe to 52%. But look what happens when you give it a perfect human-written plan. The success rate jumps all the way to 75%.
This shows a massive disconnect between reasoning and implementation. It's like you can hand the AI a perfect turn-by-turn map, and it still manages to get lost. It totally gets the what, but it falls apart on the how. And this is where the paradox really kicks in. If the AI is so bad at turning a good plan into good code, you'd think it would be clueless at spotting its own mistakes, right? Well, it turns out the opposite is true.
You have to see this table. It shows how often an AI correctly identifies its own incorrect code. For easy and medium problems, it catches its mistake about 60 to 68% of the time. Not bad. But for the hardest problems, the ones it's most likely to fail, its accuracy at spotting its own failure actually goes up to nearly 74%. As the paper says, this is a really bizarre and important discovery. The model is a better judge of its own failures when the task gets more difficult. It's like it has this weird self-awareness that only activates when it's really being challenged, even though it couldn't write the right code to begin with.
So, let's pull all this together. We have an AI that thinks differently than we do, gets stuck in these echo chambers, but also has this strange paradox where it's a better critic of itself on hard problems. What in the world do we take away from all this?
Okay, a few big things. First, we've got to stop thinking of AI as just a faster version of us. It's an alien intelligence with its own unique blind spots. Second, that self-consistency we talk about can be a trap, locking it into repeating the same mistakes. But third, and this is the hopeful part, those weird paradoxes, like being a better judge on hard problems, those are clues. They point to a path for these models to actually improve themselves. And for right now, it tells us that one of our best strategies is just to mix different AIs together to break them out of those ruts. This research really leaves us with one final massive question. Are we building truly creative programmers or just incredibly good students who are amazing at acing a test? The answer to that is going to define the entire next generation of code. Thanks for joining this Explained.